Hey guys, today BioWare held another Anthem live stream, and in this one they went over a few things for the very first time. They went into really good detail about player progression, the different types of loot and gear that you'll find in the world, the different loadouts and builds that you can make with all that loot and gear. And they showed off some gameplay at the very end. So I'll try and boil it down for you guys, not try and get into such large detail that they did. What I'm going to do is I took some notes while I was watching the live stream. I'm just going to go through them and let you know the important things that stood out to me while I was watching. So first of all, let's start with the player progression. So your player, your pilot, has levels. Like any other normal RPG, as you progress, you unlock certain things. So once you achieve a certain level, you'll be able to equip multiple weapons. First you'll probably start with one weapon slot, and then eventually you'll get a second weapon slot, things like that. You'll be able to just do more things as you progress through the game. It's important to note that your javelins, your different suits, don't have levels. So unlike some other games in this genre, there's really no need to start a new game, because you can just switch to the javelins as much as you want, and your player level remains the same. So along with the players, items also have levels, and they have a rarity system. Each item that you pick up will have a required level, and so your character has to be that level in order to use it, much like other RPG games. Now another thing that items have is a power level. So similar to Destiny, all of your items and gear combined will give you what they call a gear score. Now this gear score will allow you to see what content is right for you to take on at your level. You may not be able to take on a mission or a difficulty that has a much higher gear score if you're under-geared. But let's talk more about the items. Like I said, there's a rarity system in place in Anthem, and it starts with common, then uncommon, rare, epic, masterwork, and then legendary. Now there's some really important parts to talk about the item system that they have in the game. Some items can have elemental statuses on them, like fire damage, ice damage, and so on. This elemental damage also works as a primer for combo effects. So if you played Mass Effect before, you know that certain weapons or certain abilities act as a primer, and then other weapons or other abilities work as a detonator. And so you can use these different items in tandem with each other to create combos for yourself. A combo detonation will deal more damage and more area of effect damage as well. Uncommon and above rarity items will have what they call inscriptions on them. And inscriptions are basically stats on the items that will improve your abilities on the field. So one example that they showed early on, they had an ability that had a certain percentage pickup radius buff. You'll be able to pick up items automatically from a greater distance away than if you didn't have that equipped before. They said that there's hundreds of these inscriptions, so finding the same item over and over, you might not find the exact same piece because it'll have a different inscription on it, meaning that it can work with different builds as you go along. The more rare the item, the more inscriptions you'll have. They showed that uncommon items have 1 inscription, rare has 2, epic had 3, and masterwork and legendary had 4. Now masterwork items are a special tier of item, and basically it has a permanent stat on that item itself. So for example, they showed an Argo's mace, which detonates an electric explosion after killing an enemy, and this was a fired missile from the ranger. Now the highest tier item, legendary items, are similar to masterwork items, but they're more powerful. They have the same properties, but they're just better overall. It came as no shock when they mentioned that the primary means of gaining weapons and gear is through defeating enemies and completing missions. But they also mentioned recipes, which allows you to craft items. So if you complete a mission that will unlock a recipe for you, then you'll just need to gain the number of materials and parts in order to craft that recipe and craft that item. What's cool about these recipes, say you get a recipe at level 10, and you craft that item at level 10, meaning that it has the stats as if you're a level 10 player. You play a little bit more and you're level 20, and you want that item again, but at a level 20. All you have to do is just recraft the item. You already have the recipe, it doesn't go away. You don't have to re-earn it or anything like that. You can just continue crafting that item as long as you have the materials and parts needed. A couple more important notes about items in Anthem. They said that the higher level you are, the better chance you have of getting more rare loot, and that makes more sense. The higher level you are, the more items that you've already gotten, so obviously you're only going to be looking for stuff to improve your character. You're not just trying to get by at this point. And so once you get to a higher level, you'll start getting more opportunities to find better loot as you play the game. There's also no trading between players, so you can't put something in your vault or drop something on the ground and give to another player. All the loot that you find is only going to be for you. You can either deconstruct it or you can keep it. And to that note, inventory space is limited, but it is quite large, they said. Eventually you'll need to deconstruct some items that you no longer need, and when you deconstruct those items you'll get parts, which will help you craft better items anyway. Now last but not least, let's talk about components, and I think this is the first time that they've actually mentioned this officially. So one of the things that frustrated me and frustrated a lot of players about a game like Destiny is that your armor has a certain level and it has stats to it, but then once you get past that level, say you get a really cool armor at level 10, by the time you get to level 20, you're not going to be able to use that level 10 armor anymore. You're just going to be putting yourself at a disadvantage just to look cool. Well, in Anthem, all the vanity stuff, customizing your character to look exactly how you want, customizing your javelins to have the look that you like, and just changing it whenever you want, won't impact the stats of your javelin at all. The way that they do this is they have components, and these components are applied to your suit, and you can equip up to 6 at a time. Components allow you to tailor and customize your playstyle. Basically, they buff your character in certain ways, and they can be intelligently combined with your gear to create a matching build. Some of these benefits include damage buffs like bigger explosions and more fire damage, or utility buffs such as more ammo capacity and extended flight time. These components can be matched and combined with your gear inscriptions to really buff your character up and make some really good builds. As an example, they showed off a pretty insane build of a ranger. They had both components and the gear that complemented themselves very well, and it just made a completely crazy build. While his ranger hovers, he gets a faster cooldown rate by 50% on all his abilities. Killing an enemy with his left bumper ability caused an electric explosion, which I talked about earlier, and buffed his right bumper ability by 50% damage for 3 seconds. Getting a double kill with his right bumper ability filled his ultimate bar by 10%. If he got a triple kill with his right bumper ability, it regen his shields to full. And then once he put out his ultimate ability, it increased his gear damage by 50% for 5 seconds. And then if he's still hovering at this point, it's basically a rinse and repeat, because by that time, all his abilities are going to be coming off cooldown, and you can really chain these things together and cause a lot of chaos. I'm sure this is an extreme, end game build that this guy had. It wasn't something that you're just going to get right off the bat. You're not going to be throwing these crazy combos out when you're just starting an Anthem, or even when you're halfway through the game. But I'm sure once you get closer to the end game and afterwards, you'll have enough gear to really make some pretty cool builds that can specialize in melee combat, ranged combat, combat where you can take down one huge enemy, just focusing on one enemy at a time, or a combat like this where you're fighting multiple enemies, big groups, and you can just kind of clean up the trash. In the next couple months, there's going to be a lot of information coming out for Anthem. I do plan to keep people up to date on this channel, so if you enjoyed the video and you thought it was useful, definitely give it a like and subscribe to my channel to stay up to date on all of my content. Follow me on Twitter and join my Discord, the links are in the description below. But with that being said, I hope you guys have a good rest of your day. Until next time, I'll see you later.